shutting down his sexual desire. He started to feel really bad. He was tired of approaching his wife for sex and getting rejected, and he started to feel shameful that he wanted it so much. So we see it go both ways. The higher desire partner trying to lessen their sexual desire because it's caused so many problems, or how do we get that lower desire partner to match the higher desire? But if we get out of that conversation entirely and we come back to arousal maps.
For a man, and this is, I'm not defending men because we need to be better about this, but I think inside a man's head, he is literally trying to balance and do and accomplish and do 10,000 things. Susan Morgan Taylor, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm doing great. Super excited to be here, Larry.
I'm excited too. So let's start with your actual title. I don't know what a somatic sex therapist is. I know what a sex therapist is, but somatic, tell me about that.
Yes. Somatic really just means of or pertaining to the body. So my background is in sex therapy. I worked in traditional psychotherapy, mental health setting as a sex therapist, primarily working with couples. But the somatic piece really came online when I really started to realize that just talking really it's very important, but it really has its limits. And where I found couples got the most results and were really able to make the best progress is when we started to include the wisdom of the body, meaning bringing people into actual experiences of the things that tend to get in the way of their ability to, let's say, ask for what they want. Even just asking for what they want, whether it's sexual or not, can be just a huge challenge. And before that, it's even noticing what I want. What do I want? Those things happen in the body. And so I met an amazing teacher in the field, Betty Martin, back in 2016, came across her work and began to study and train. She has a beautiful body work called The Wheel of Consent, which informs a lot of the work that I do with couples. It's not all of it, but it's a big part of it. And that was really a game changer for me as I started to learn that and apply it in my own life. Just completely changed all of my relationships, not just my intimate and sexual relationships, but every relationship that in my life, I was able to see it through a completely new lens. And I really started to understand that we have to involve our experience of the moment. What's actually happening in my body? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? What am I desiring? Where do I get stuck? Where so many couples get stuck, sexually speaking, is in not just the knowing what do I want, but also there's a lot of confusion around what's happening and who it's for. And it turns into what I call like the train wreck, right? So it's like, well, I want this thing, my partner doesn't want it, so let's just not do anything at all. And it doesn't have to stop there. So somatic means of or pertaining to the body, where we're really learning how to work through some of the challenges in an experiential way. We're gaining wisdom from our body, not just analyzing a problem or talking about a problem. That's actually one of the biggest traps I see couples get into, is they've talked and talked and talked and talked, and they're stuck in these communication loops. So the way out of that is just by adding another approach or another perspective. And so that's what somatic means. It's essentially the same as a sex therapist, but we tend to include a little bit more experiential, not meaning that we get naked or touch. That's sort of a different field of somatic work, which is totally valuable too. Somatic sex therapy, we're not necessarily touching people, but we are using real-time experiences to inform the work and to help people encounter the actual obstacle, and then resourcing them with ways to work through it and have new ways of relating, new ways of being, so they can expand their potential.
That's really fascinating. I never knew that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. How did you even get involved in this field?
Yeah, sex therapy, right? It's not something as a little kid, I'm like, I want to be a sex therapist when I grow up.
I've never seen that on like a fifth grader, like, this is what I want to be when I grow up.
Exactly. Yeah, that did not happen. But I did always know I wanted to help other people. I always know I wanted to be a counselor, therapist, healer, teacher, and I'm sort of all of those things really in the work that I do with sex therapy. But it really began with my own journey. I was in a marriage where I was, which I call really a sexless marriage, and I was the one who was the shutdown person. I was the one like so not interested, could care less. Now, there were a lot of things that contributed to that. There were a lot of other challenges going on that really honestly probably led to my disinterest in sex. But, long story short, that marriage did not last. And a couple of years later, was in another relationship, and I had the same pattern arise. My marriage, I think I made my husband sort of responsible. I always made the man responsible for my pleasure. And in my marriage, I was just like, well, there's something more that I wanted. I wanted more depth. I wanted more connection. I could have lots of orgasms. That was never a challenge for me, but there was an emptiness in that for me. And I sort of just put it on my husband. I just thought, well, maybe he's just not a good lover. He doesn't know how to, do it for me. But what I wasn't doing was really taking responsibility for myself. And that really showed itself after that marriage ended. I was in another relationship, and this man, he had all kinds of sexual experiences and had studied sexuality and, I'm going to rock your world. I'm going to make your body have this full body orgasm and do all these amazing things that I had heard about and always wanted to experience. Well, he did not deliver. And that relationship ended, very short-term relationship. It didn't really last. And I was left looking at my life of like, wow, here I am again with the same pattern that has followed me into the future. And I was just determined to let that be the end of it. And my realization was that I needed to take responsibility for myself, for my own pleasure. And I thought, well, surely, if that man said he could do all these things to my body, it's my body. So if he thinks he can do that to me, then I can find that pathway within myself. It must exist inherently within me. So I made this commitment to undergo the study of my own sexuality. Literally one day, it was like a December morning. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time. And I said, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how my body works. I'm going to figure out how pleasure works, how sexual energy works. I just want this so bad. And I'm tired of not taking responsibility or making, thinking some man's going to deliver this to me, right? Well, not long after I made that commitment, some amazing things happened. I had books jump off the shelf. I had a chance encounter with a sex therapist who completely changed my whole experience of everything. A big inspiration for why I became a sex therapist. But the thing that happened was during what I had done, I set aside a couple hours each week to touch myself, to pleasure myself, to work with my physical body and what was happening in it, my sexual energy, just a date. I call it like a pleasure date, just with myself. And during one of those pleasure dates, I had an experience where this wave of pleasure just started through my feet, rolled up my whole body, shot out my heart, my face was numb, my hands were vibrating, and all this love and pleasure just poured through me. And I realized I'm having this full body orgasmic experience right now. And the realization I had was that this is something that exists already within me. And all I had done up to that point was I had removed the things that were in the way of my ability to really experience that level of connection, pleasure, and love. And all of a sudden I realized I don't need to seek that outside myself. I don't need to seek love in a relationship. I don't need to wait for some stud to show up and rock my world sexually. I knew that any partner I had in my future, that now that I'd found that pathway myself, that I could show that person, that I could take myself there. And so therefore I could help another person unlock that within me because I had found that path within me. And so that was really the moment that I decided I wanted to be a sex therapist and help others. And I happened to already be in graduate school at the time, getting my master's degree in counseling. So I was already on the path to become a therapist, but I knew that I was going to specialize in sex therapy and really help others be able to find that. At the time, the interest was more in women's sexuality because I was like this shut down. I felt asexual, and I unlocked this. I really was I want to help other women be able to find this pleasure, and that helps their husbands, and it just makes the world a better place when women are in their pleasure, which I still love that. But what ended up happening was couples started to come to me. So now I specialize in helping couples overcome and bridge that gap between differences in sexual desire and mismatched libido, and really how to find more connection, more pleasure, more love, and more joy, flow, and fun.
That's really interesting. I love your story. It's got me insanely curious, but I mean, do we just simply debunk, the notion that, oh, it's this other person? Like it's the other person that does this to me, or is it a combination of this other person had such an influence on me, and maybe I was in a mental state where I felt insanely connected to this person, and I was able to kind of unlock or that next level of pleasure for myself and this partner or whatever. So is it not the actual other person? Do we need to take responsibility for our own, figuring out our own bodies, I guess, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, I love that question. I love how you position that, because there's it's very nuanced in a way, but fundamentally, yes, the other person in the relationship can certainly have an impact. But where we go wrong is by thinking that it's up to that other person to quote unquote give me pleasure. This is where I see so many couples get so stuck in this, and this is where the lights can really come on, If we can get super clear, so what I'll say to my couples when I'm working with a couple, if you are 100% responsible for your own experience, for your own pleasure, you're 100% responsible for your own pleasure in this relationship, what does that change for you? And when that really lands, it changes everything. Because then the responsibility is on me to advocate for what I desire and what I need and what I don't want. What happens a lot is we're tolerating things. And a lot, where I see that turns into sort of the blame and the putting it on the other person, right? So, oh, he's touching me in a way that I don't like, but it's what he wants, so I'm just going to kind of go along with it. But meanwhile, this really doesn't feel great for my body, but I'm going to do it because it's what he wants. And he's thinking, well, I'm doing this because I want her to have pleasure. I'm trying to give her a good time. So there's a lot, right? Nobody knows who that's happening for. And so there's a lot of confusion there. That's also when we have that clarity, we know who it's for, and I'm clear on what I'm wanting or what I'm willing to do or not do. That creates clarity, and pleasure can live there. But that being said, there is also this relational piece of trust. And what's happening contextually in a relationship or in a marriage can absolutely impact our ability. It might not be safe for somebody to use their voice to speak up. If there's any kind of domestic violence or every time they speak up, they get shamed or reprimanded or judged, that's a contextual thing and a relational challenge that is going to make it very hard for somebody to really step up and create that level of clarity. So the relationship's a huge part of it, but it's not the only part of it.
So when it comes to this, it's our job to, number one, know like our bodies, right? And I'm curious, with your knowledge, is everybody wired different when it comes to this? Or are we all pretty similar? Like, I feel like that's a dumb question, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. So what do you mean, knowing our bodies, and are we wired different? We are wired differently, but say more about that. I want to really make sure that I answer that question like in a way that's of value.
I guess the way I'm trying to understand this is, I think there's obviously, when it comes to sex and when it comes to a man, when it comes to a woman, I think there's universal things that we probably like and probably work, right? And work meaning like we could probably have a pretty good sexual experience. But I think what you're talking about is like, how do we have like this absolute next level experience, with our partners, right? Which I think, I don't know the statistics, maybe you do, but
yeah,
I would love to know like how many married couples, monogamous relationships out there are actually satisfied as far as like their level of satisfaction, their level of frequency, the level of connection. Like I would love to know some just stats around this if you got them.
Numbers.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, I don't have those. I don't, but so yeah, there was a lot in that. So let's unpack that. There's really sort of these three domains, and one of them is the knowing. We are wired differently. We're all wired differently. Like, what is your arousal map? So what tends to work for most people, well, where we tend to go, especially when it comes to sex, is towards like direct genital stimulation, right? That's what we think of as sex. So if we're going to go, quote unquote, have sex, it's probably going to involve some kissing, probably some touching of the genitals, the breasts, and then we're going to kind of go into it that way. Now that works for a certain percentage of people. A certain percentage of people are wired in that way, where that direct sexual stimulation is what gets them aroused and turn on. But there's a significant number of people that are not wired that way, where they need more indirect types of engagement, where there's, for example, maybe things move more slowly. Maybe there's a little bit more stuff happening in the environment, candles and music and no pressure. We don't really know where things are going. Some people need more distance, more spaciousness, more flirting, less direct genital touch for them to become aroused and interested potentially in more sexual types of engagement. And so that's how we're all wired differently. So it's really important that we learn how to identify what is our sexual arousal map, or our blueprint, our archetype. Beautiful body of work out there called the sexual blueprints that I've studied and done some training in, that helps couples immensely understand these different ways that we become interested in sex. If we don't know that, then a lot of times we're doing the things that we think should work but don't, and then we wonder why don't they work, and then someone's feeling broken or inadequate, and it doesn't need to be that way. When we know that, we have that clarity. So that's the first piece. The second piece is the ability to, what I call the 3 N's, to notice, what am I feeling, what do I want, to name that, and then to negotiate, to experience it. How do I bring that in? There's like several steps to each of those three ends, which, we don't really have time to go into all of that, but I teach those in the immersion experiences and retreats that I lead for couples. But the very first piece that we tend to ignore is the noticing. What is happening in my body right now? Is it for me? Is it something that I want for my pleasure, or is this for my partner's pleasure? And that's the other piece, sort of like the third piece, is how do we negotiate that space relationally to make sure that both people are getting what they want? And if we don't know the answer to that question, who is it happening for, that can lead to all kinds of train wrecks. And I'll let you comment here for a minute, but I'd be happy to give an example on how that tends to show up for a lot of couples. And I bet your listeners would really relate.
Yeah, let's hear the example. I'm dying to know.
Okay. This one tends to show up a lot with oral sex. I see this all the time. So I had a couple I was working with last year, and they were having, sort of the challenge of every time they'd have sex, they'd reach one of these train wreck places and then they would just avoid it. And so they were like literally afraid to engage sexually. There's like, I don't know, it goes down the tube so fast. We just are afraid to go there. It's causing so many problems. But one of the things that was happening was he would go down on her thinking that, this is sort of the next logical thing to do as part of foreplay. And she liked it last week, I think. So I'm going to go down on her. But, she's not really responding the way that he thinks she would or thinks she should, or the way he would like her to be responding. She's kind of neutral to it. So he's now feeling like he's not a good lover. He's doing something wrong. But what's going on in her mind the whole time is, well, I don't really like oral sex, but he's going down on me. So I guess, I'll just let him go down on me because that's what he's wanting to do. So I'm just going to kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to get into it. I'm trying to like it, but I just really don't. It's not my favorite thing. So what we ended up doing is having a conversation around this. And it's, well, who is this really happening for? Is it happening because she wants it? We'll just call her Julie. We'll just pick a name. Is it because Julie really desires oral sex, or are you going down on Julie? And let's just call him Brian. Brian, are you going down on her because you think that's what she wants? Or are you doing it because you want it, because you enjoy going down on her? And he's like, well, I mean, I like going down on her, but I'm not really doing it because it's what I'm wanting at that moment. I'm doing it because I don't know. I guess I think that she likes it. And she's going, well, I really don't like oral sex. I really don't want that. Nobody wanted the thing that was happening, is my point here. But they didn't have the clarity or the language to be able to get that clarity, so that didn't need to be an issue. If he was going down on her because he enjoyed it, she has no obligation to have to get pleasure out of it. She can say, I allow you access to that part of my body, have fun, I don't have to have any particular reaction. It's free. I'm giving a gift to you. Go for it. If it's for her, then he would hopefully make sure that's something that she wants. But with this particular couple, neither of them really wanted that. And this was causing all kinds of problems and assumptions in the relationship that was really damaging things. So once they had that clarity of realizing neither of them wanted that, they felt so much freer. They had that clarity. They felt so much more free, and they weren't having these. It helped to resolve some of the challenges that they were having. They were then able to clarify moving forward when certain things would happen of, all right, let's clarify who this is for right now, because that's how pleasure can live. That's how we can consciously create more connection and more pleasure, is having that level of clarity.
Wow. Okay. How often do you see, I guess, this discrepancy with couples, like to where they're just not communicating like that?
Well, almost everyone who comes to me, almost every couple that I work with, that's, obviously, because that's what I specialize in. So I'm, it's sort of not representative of the general population, but I think it's probably a lot of people out there generally. But all the couples that come to me are having some level of communication can be happening. But if we're not communicating about the right things and in a way that actually moves the needle, then that's where I see couples get stuck in that communication loop. So it might be, we have no problem talking about sex, but are you actually talking about the things that are going to move the needle? A lot of times, no,
sense.
Right? They're not, just in merely for lack of education and lack of having, really a solid, like a practical framework or a lens to kind of understand what's happening. And that's really, another really critical piece to this, is having a framework and a common language so we can understand what's happening when there is a train wreck, or if we want to avoid those train wrecks. It helps to have some understanding of how do you create that clarity. And that's just a matter of building certain skills.
What do you find? I want to back up a little bit and just maybe pull back the curtain on what couples are saying. And when I say couples, I mean each one of them individually. So
Yeah.
when women come and see you with their husband or their significant other, partner, whatever we're calling them these days, what do you find have been the most common things that women complain about, like the 2 or 3 things that they complain about? And then also, what are the 2 or 3 things that men most common complain about?
Yes, the thing I see most of the time, and this is funny because usually it's the husbands dragging their wives in to see me, in part because my specialty in women's sexuality, I think this is how the couples started showing up for me. I was a specialist in women's sexuality, so the husbands are like, "Oh, this is great. Like, can you fix my wife? Can you show her? She doesn't want to have sex with me. Can you, maybe you could teach her, maybe you can show her, maybe you can like basically fix her." And those aren't maybe not necessarily the exact words, but that's the gist of what he's saying, right? Like dragging the wife in, something's wrong with her. She doesn't want to have sex with me. Maybe you can show her, what she needs to do so she wants it more. What the women are saying is, I feel broken. I know that we're here right now because the issue. That's what the women are saying. They feel broken and like they need to be fixed. And at the end of the day, neither one of these things is actually true. She's not broken. She doesn't need to be fixed. And thank you for bringing her. I'm so glad you're here with her. It's really great to get the guys in, to have both parts of the relationship to work with that. But neither of those things are actually true. She does not need to be fixed. And there's a reason why she's lost interest or not wanting to engage with you sexually.
What do you find is the reason for that?
Yeah, it can be a lot of different things, but the women a lot of times it's multiple things. This kind of answers your previous question as well. A lot of times she's not connected with her own pleasure. She's doing it to keep him happy. She's having sex to keep the relationship together, to not rock the boat, to make sure her husband's not grumpy. It's a chore on her to-do list. So if she's coming at it from that angle, she's not getting benefits from it. She's not getting, well, first of all, there's a very tangible benefit, oxytocin and all those really good hormonal benefits that we get from sex when it's coming from a place of genuine desire. We don't get that when it's coming from obligation or just got to keep him happy or just got to get him off my case. We don't get that. So she's not getting that. And if there's nothing really in it for her and she's just doing it for him, she's not going to want more of that. So the challenge that I work with a lot and that I see a lot is, first of all, helping her be able to connect with her desires. And that's a big challenge. I hear that a lot too. I have no idea what I want or how I want to be touched or what I like. So some of it's helping her to connect with that part of her own body and her desire and getting over this guiltiness around that. Or I'm somehow selfish if I have pleasure or if I want something specific. On the flip side of it, well, this is kind of on both sides. It's also about understanding how women's sexuality is wired, that our bodies need more time. We have the same amount of erectile tissue in our genitals as a man has in his. It's just spread over a larger network and multiple different organs in our genitals, right? Instead of being all condensed into the penis, it's in the clitoris, it's in the labia, it's in the G-spot. So it's kind of spread out. So our bodies tend to need a lot more time. And I think the research shows 21 or more minutes of warming up and foreplay before a woman's going to become consistently orgasmic during penetrative sex. And I might add, before she's probably really going to get out of her head and be able to sink into her pleasure. That's the other thing with women as well. We are plugged into everything in our environment. We know exactly who's in the house, what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Do the kids need anything? Right? Our awareness is all over the map. So it takes a little while for us to be able to turn that part of our brain off and become available for pleasure. So that's just some basic education. And when her husband understands that, or her male partner understands that, her body needs more time, and he can give that to her, understanding he's going to get so much more out of it. If he can help her relax, if he can help her feel safe, if he can ask her, what do you need right now so that you could feel safe, or so that you could relax, or so that you would want to engage with me intimately. So it's both sides of the equation here, but that's the main thing that I see primarily with women, and then kind of the piece that the men can do to help.
That's really cool. So you mentioned relaxing and safety.
Yeah.
Are those are obviously two really important things, right?
Yes.
Is the relaxation. I read this thing the other day is, why is hotel sex so amazing? And, a couple things where it's a different place.
Yeah.
It's a different environment. There's no laundry baskets around. There's no kids around. There's no banging on the doors. There's no like, oh, we got to get this done really, really quick before a kid comes in here.
Yep.
And that relaxation mechanism goes way up for a woman. And even the safety thing too, because she's like, oh my gosh, like I really have nothing to worry about except for what's happening right here. Is that pretty accurate?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, the new environment is novelty. Anytime you introduce novelty, that's going to help you sort of get over what we call sexual satiety or habituation, where we just get sort of accustomed to our surroundings, accustomed to a sexual partner. That's one of the reasons things can kind of dry out over time in long-term relationships. So the aspect of novelty helps with arousal. It creates more dopamine. And yeah, the safety is critical, particularly for women, where we need to have that prefrontal cortex totally quieted down before we're really going to be able to drop into our pleasure center. It's a bigger deal for women than it is for men, just in terms of how we're wired and how our orgasms, our capacity for pleasure work, the feeling of safety. And you're right. Like if I'm not worried that someone's going to come crashing through the door or that someone can hear me, if you like to make noise, we're worried about like, oh my gosh, like my kid is upstairs and they're going to, I don't want to be too loud. I got to like, that all creates more tension, which always works against pleasure. It puts us in our parasympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight response versus it puts us into our sympathetic nervous system where we want to be as parasympathetic. Parasympathetic nervous system is when we're relaxed, we feel safe, we're comfortable. That's where pleasure can come online. That's where sexual arousal can come online as well. So yeah, hotel sex all the way.
That makes sense. Yeah. What about, so I think we're really scratching the surface here on the discrepancy of, she wants it more than I do, or he wants it more than I do. There's always a higher driver in the relationship, isn't there?
Well, again, so this comes back to the arousal maps. It will appear that way. And this is why I think it's a myth. I think this whole conversation around the high libido, low libido, I call it a myth because I really think we need to change the conversation around that entirely. Okay. Because when you understand, because I don't think it helps, what you see inside of that conversation, you see that the higher desire partner is like, how do we get the lower desire partner to match me? And or I also have seen, I worked with a couple years ago who he had the higher drive, which that's sort of more of like the stereotypical, right? The guy's the higher drive, but that it works both ways. He had the higher drive. And so he was shutting down his sexual desire. He started to feel really bad. He was tired of approaching his wife for sex and getting rejected. And he started to feel shameful that he wanted it so much. So we see it go both ways. The higher desire partner trying to lessen their sexual desire because it's caused so many problems, or how do we get that lower desire partner to match the higher desire? But if we get out of that conversation entirely and we come back to arousal maps or sexual blueprints, how am I wired? How do I get turned on? Maybe I need more spaciousness. Maybe I need to have less pressure. So in that couple that I was just referring to that I worked with a couple years ago, that was the case. She needed to feel less pressure for sex. So how she was wired was more of what's called like the sensual blueprint that needs a lot more time, no pressure. They don't want to have a feeling like it's got to lead to sex. They need lots of touching, a nice environment. He was more wired sexually where it's like, let's just go for it. Let's get down to the genitals. Let's get to those orgasms. So once they learned to have some of this understanding, they could work with each other. So nobody had to shut anything down. I had to do some work with him too of helping him get his desire back online so he could really embody it. He had really shut it down. And it also helped her be in a place where she could celebrate his sexuality and his desires without feeling obligated. Because that's what happens a lot, right? Like if my partner wants this, and that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's a lot, and I don't know. And then I'm feeling obligated, and I'm either scared, like, hey, that's too much, can you tone it down? Or I'm like, oh my God, like I have to provide that, and I don't know if I can or if I want to. So I'm either going to do it out of obligation or I'm going to shut down. I'm just going to avoid. Neither of those strategies work. So, right, we have to get both people in a place where they can celebrate. It doesn't mean they have to provide it or produce it. That's sort of a slightly different conversation on the desire discrepancy. But I think hopefully you get the idea, and we can dig into that too. Happy to chat more about that.
Yeah. I think every guy can relate to what you're talking about, to where we kind of get, well, not every guy, I mean, but like the guys who have a high sex drive, and if they're with a partner where the sex drive isn't matched, like a guy will tamp his down. Yeah. And sometimes, but get very frustrated.
Yeah.
and get very resentful almost.
Yes.
Like, and almost to the point where it's like, I mean, I'll be very honest. My wife and I have been married for 22 years. I would say our desires are totally matched now, and they have been for a while. So she wants as much as I do, which is great.
Nice.
But for a long time, in the beginning of our relationship, I mean, I met her when she was 18, and you know, it was very like, and I was a younger guy too. So like, I mean, but not that really, I mean, I've always had a high drive. It's never really gone away, if I'm being honest, but maybe hers has just come up. I don't know. But like, but I would get up to the point, but granted, like, I mean, when I was in college and like early in our relationship, like I wanted it like every day.
Yeah.
And I would almost think like, well, isn't it normal for us to do it every day? Like, we're young, we're not married yet. Like, if we're not, like, is something wrong with us? Like, I don't believe that now.
Right.
But, you know, back then I did, but it did, like, that happened to us where I would just like, I tamped it down. And then, but the thing was, is I would get resentful. And resentful meaning like, not like outward towards her, but I would just be like, God bless, like, I really want to have sex, but like, I don't even want to try, because if I get rejected, it's going to suck, you know? But then it was tough on her too, because she was like, I'm really not in the mood. And then, but the funny thing was, is it took us like a while in our relationship. And I remember like years ago, I remember, and this was a triggering topic for us early in our marriage, and it's not anymore. It's actually a fantastic topic for us, but we've done a lot of work with it. But I remember kind of like, I don't know, it might've been like 10 years ago at this point, but like, I'll never forget this one night where I made an advance for us to have sex, and she's like, I'm sorry. Like, I just can't tonight. I'm exhausted. Like, I just can't. And I'm like, and I kind of did like the really, really attractive hot thing where you kind of pout. Like, every woman loves that, right? Like, oh, like, I can't wait to have sex with you again. Especially when you pout, like, it's awesome. But yeah, I don't do that anymore either. But like, I didn't really pout, but I was just like, I was just like, okay. And she looked at me and she goes, and she held my hand and she goes, you do realize this has nothing to do with you, right? And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I'm not saying no to you. I never say no to you. I actually love having sex with you. She's like, I'm so attracted to you. Like, it has nothing to do with you. She's like, just know this. I always want you. I always want you. And if I say no, it is never saying no to you. It's never saying, no, you don't do it for me. No, you're not attractive enough. No, you're not this. No, you're not that. It's no, because of all these other things outside of you, like that are really hard for me, like the exhaustion or the kids or the whatever. And I'm like, and I don't know what it was, Susan, but it was just like, it just clicked. And I was like, oh my God, that makes total sense. And then ever since then, like, number one, our sex life literally just elevated from there. Like, we were able to communicate about it better. There was no resentment anymore. But like, even now, like, we joke about it. Like, I'll be like, like the other night, I was like, hey, it's been like, I joke with her. I was like, our code word is I miss you. Like, I miss you. Like, that way we can say it safely in front of the kids. Like, I miss you. She's like, I miss you too. And then but the funny thing, I'm giving you a lot of detail here for a reason though. But like, so we've decided a long time ago, we're no longer going to try to have sex at night. It's just because like, we're not night people.
Right.
We're day sex people, and our kids are away at school. So it's like perfect time. Like, we can do it anytime we want during the day. So at night, we're just like, you know what, let's just take the pressure off our relationship. Yeah. And let's just not at night. Let's just like hang out. And we did that. But I'll tell you, like, this just happened. So like, it had been like a week since we messed around, and like, this was just last night. And I looked over at her and I was like, I miss you. And she's like, I miss you too. And I was like, I know we don't have sex at night. I was like, but I could if you want to. And she's like, I could. And I'm like, okay. I was like, but here's the funny thing. I was like, I know this sounds weird. I was like, but like, I feel like we're just making like a transactional conversation here. I was like we're not like wooing each other or anything like that. She goes, yeah, you're right. She goes, but let's still do it. And I'm like, and we like laughed about it. And I was like, and it was great. And everything was fine. But I was just like, is this how we talk about it now? And she's like, sometimes. Like, it's just the way it was.
I love it. And I would
Yeah.
agree with that. I think it's okay. That is fine. I think it's good to have that as an option, sort of the more
Yeah.
like business conversation.
Yeah.
Not that you want it to always be that way, but it's so nice when you're that comfortable with it that it can be like that, and it can still be hot. And I bet it was still hot with your wife
Yeah.
that night. Like, it didn't make the sex any less great just because it was sort of more of like a business conversation.
Right.
Yeah. And I love that is so beautiful, what she said to you and that landed for you. I absolutely love that. And I hope that, your listeners really take that to heart. I also feel like there's this conversation also around willingness. And I'll often say to, the quote unquote lower desire partner in the relationship is, okay, it's cool. Like, you do not have to do it. No one does anything they don't want to do. We want to get away from that habit of obligation and tolerating. That never leads to more pleasure and more connection. But what we can do is find, well, okay, my partner wants to have sex. I'm not up for it, but is there something else that I would be willing to do? Maybe I could do a hand job. Maybe I could go down on him. Like, maybe I could lick his ear. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe there's something else that you want that I would be willing to do. So that way we don't just stop, because what I see happens with a lot of couples is it's like, and this might have happened for you, Larry, like if she said no, we're like, all right, end of story, game over. And then the frustration and resentment creeps in over time. Versus, hey, I'm not into it. That's cool. Would you be up for something else? Like, so there's other things that we can, that's the part of the negotiating aspect, as I said earlier, the 3 N's, negotiating an experience that we both would be excited to receive and willing to provide with an open heart. And so that's a very nuanced state that takes some time to really develop those skills, but it's another avenue that we can go down, because I don't think it's fair to lock somebody into lifelong monogamy and then not have sex with them. Like, that's not really like a fair deal. So we have to find some way through where no one's tolerating or doing something they don't want to do, but you also don't have someone who's starving and needs that kind of attention and doesn't have a way to advocate to have that met.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Please.
So I have a client right now, and I'm flabbergasted by this situation.
Okay.
I've been coaching men for almost 10 years, and I haven't seen one quite like this. But I got to be super careful with details here, because all my clients are confidential. But like, I'll share this. So they've been married for let's just call it a decade, okay? And they're, would you call them Brian and Julie?
Yeah.
We'll call them Brian and Julie.
Okay,
2.
Brian and Julie, part 2.
The sequel. So Brian, here's what happened. They haven't had sex for about a year, okay? This was last December of 2023, okay, as I started working with him late summer of 2024. And when I first met him, and he kind of like knocked on my virtual door of like, hey, I'd like some marriage coaching. What does this look like? And he kind of gave me the down low. So 3 little kids, all under 6 and under. The wife, I gotta be careful with details here. She had a relative that she was very, very close to diagnosed with a terminal disease and was really, really tough on her. At the same time, her husband fell asleep. Brian fell asleep in the marriage. He didn't do anything wrong. He wasn't, I shouldn't say that. He wasn't abusive. But he just sort of like stopped engaging and showing up like he should have, right? Stopped pursuing her. He's still a good dad, but stopped pursuing her, stopped being like that emotional connector. Like, just when he came home, just kind of like decompressed and checked out.
Yep.
When I got to him, like, I was like, give me a lay of the land. He's like, we haven't had sex since December. This was, I think, August. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to lose her, yada, yada, yada. Well, so we started coaching, and he started making a ton of progress. And she did exactly what I thought she was going to do. She'd be like, get her hopes up, like, oh my God, this is great. You're like this wonderful man. And then she would like engage, and then she'd back away, and then she'd engage and back away. And I was like, she's testing you, not on a conscious level, but unconscious level. She's giving a little bit, but she's like, oh God, please don't hurt me. And she'll retreat again.
Absolutely.
But here's the crazy thing. So she finally, like, after like all this work, she like ravished him one night, and he's like, oh my God, this is great. Oh my God, this is amazing. Like, we're back. Right. And then the next day she was kind of like, thanks, that was awesome. we're back to where we were, which is we're parents and we live together, but I don't want you to touch me. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, I am so confused. And according to him, the sex was great. She got a lot out of it. She really wanted it. She pursued it and she got it. And he got, his pleasure too and all that good stuff. Well, then another month went by and she just kept him like at arm's length. And then suddenly she's like, come in here like out of the blue one day, like come in the bedroom now, and like just ravaged him. And he was just like, oh my God, it's awesome. We're back. And now she's still like, okay, we're back to being parents again. No intimacy. I don't want you to touch me. Like when you touch me, I don't like it. And he's like, I am so confused. Mm-hmm. And he came to me, Brian comes to me, and I'm like, and this has been like this constant back and forth. And I'm like, dude, I was like, I got to be honest, man. I've never seen this. I don't know what to make of this. What do you make of this, Susan? I don't know.
I mean, ovulation.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's what I make of this.
Okay.
She's not like ovulating.
Right. So, I mean, obviously the desire's there, but like, how do you like, yeah, I got mine. I'm putting you right back in the friend zone. Thanks for being a good dad. Thanks for providing for our family. And I appreciate you. And you're doing all this great stuff for me. But yeah, I'm going to put you back in the friend zone.
Extremely tough. And I honestly don't know other than hormones, monthly hormones. I mean, I don't know. I would look at what happened contextually, because if you've got little kids, so look, that is going to absolutely change things, especially for your wife. I know it does for dads too. Absolutely. Everything changes for both parties involved here. But, I'd be real curious with that of what changed contextually. I would want to know, maybe she was on a certain stage of her cycle. Was it that the kids were out of the house? Was it that he did something that maybe made her feel more trust and more open and desire to have sex? That's a tough one. I don't know. Without like actually talking to that couple and getting more details. Hormones.
Well, yeah, hormones, I'm sure. But like he has become like this 2.0 version of himself. Like this dude is like a husband on steroids. And I'm not talking about like, I'm doing this because I want something from you. Like his mentality is like, he full ownership. He's like, dude, as a man, he's like, I need to change. I need to learn. Whether I'm with her or my next relationship, doesn't matter. True. I just need to be better and I need to learn these skills. Absolutely. So like, I saw her like really engage with him a lot, like outside the bedroom, because he was doing like a lot of really fantastic things and connecting. But the thing that I find so odd is like, she treats him very well, like as a friend. She treats him very good as a dad, but she's like, I don't want any intimacy with you. But like, but then she'll call the shots and be like, okay, now I do. And then, after we're done here, I don't want any more.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like flabbergasted.
Right.
Over that.
Like she wants to be in control is what creates safety for her, is what that sounds like to me. So when she calls a shot, she feels safe. And I would be really curious to know in this relationship, is he backing off when she's like, yeah, get away from me, you're just my friend? Is he like, okay, yeah, I'm going to back off. I'll go play golf. Like, what is he doing when she puts him in the friend zone? Is he complying with that?
Yeah, he does. He actually does. He's like, but here's what he does. He strikes a good balance, I think. So the balance is this. So he continues to be a very good man, a very good dad, good provider, all those good things. And he does respect her wishes. He's like, okay, I won't pursue intimacy with you if you don't want it. At the same but he does tell her this. At the same time, I will tell you this. This marriage is not sustainable like this for me.
Right.
And I will have to draw the line at some point. I can't be like your booty call when you want me to be. No. I want you to be my wife and I want to be your husband. And I want this family. And this is not it.
Right.
So he's like, he's told me, he's like, I'm going to go along with this for a while. He's like, but I can't do this. This is not long-term. And I will end this relationship if I have to.
Yeah. What does she do when he initiates?
She just completely closes down. Like she says she feels anxiety, like when he, like those types of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious if he's had a conversation with her about that. And perhaps there are ways where he could let her, but they could do it consciously, where she actually gets to be in control. Now, she doesn't get to just use them when she needs it, but you said, okay, look, let's do a little experiment. Let's just let's start with just 15 minutes. And we're just going to play. And you get to be completely in charge of what happens and how I touch you and what you want. We're just going to follow your desire. So you give her an opportunity to be in charge. And you allow for touch and intimate touch to be part of that, but she actually gets to call the shots. So she actually has more of that experience of actually getting to be in the driver's seat, because that's what's happening. Like the shutdown is a lack of safety. And it might be that she's wired such that she, like the sensual, right, where you need to feel safe, like there's no pressure. You don't know what's going to happen next. So you're not on the beeline just to get to sex, but there's sort of the spaciousness there, but you actually give her the opportunity to practice that. And where he's offering to her no more, no less, like, I'll do what you ask. It's for you. We're going to follow your desire for the next 15 minutes. Whatever that desire is, even if she just wants to cuddle, or maybe she wants kissing, maybe she doesn't want, whatever she wants for that 15 minutes, we're just going to go there. And so she gets to have that experience of just being in charge. They could reverse it then too. He could have 15 minutes where she just follows his desire. But she's not obligated to produce. If he wants something she's not really willing, she doesn't have to provide it. But see, this is where that clarity comes in. And what I'm hearing here is this is really someone that just, it's part of the safety piece. So if he could work with that consciously and bring that more into the sexual engagement, ideally you practice it before you become sexual in an ideal world. But even in a sexual engagement, it's giving her the power to say no. Giving her the power to say yes, and really helping her to soften more deeply into herself through that. That's the thing that creates safety for her, it sounds like.
You know what? I mean, now that you say that, that makes so much sense. Like, and because before this, I was like, I am at a loss here. I don't know what to think of this anymore, but that makes a lot of sense. And I love that strategy because it just, it's like, hey, this is on your terms, like whatever you want. For this 15 minutes, like, I think that's such a good, for lack of a better word, like our term, test drive, like,
yeah, and
you're doing something different.
Right. And having a container around it, that
Yeah.
containment of the time creates safety, and the structure creates safety because we know that you set it up ahead of time. Just let's practice this. Here's the time frame. This doesn't have to lead to anything. We're just for the sake of practicing this. And that creates more safety. And from there, so that's the thing, right? Like relaxation, feeling safe, that's where pleasure lives. If she has enough experiences like that with him, where she knows he's not going to try to push it towards sex, over time, it'll become safer and safer for her to begin to, okay, maybe we could try this again and go a little further. Oh, that felt nice. I know you're going to respect me. I know I feel safe, and I'm noticing like now I want a little bit more. So it gradually can open over time, but it never happens by trying to force it. By trying
Almost
to
like you're
force
dating
her
again.
open or force yourself to want something or force her to want that. It never works that way.
Like almost like you're dating again. Like I remember, like, I mean, granted, it's been 30 years since I've dated, but like I remember like dating, it was like everything like happened in steps. Like I've never had a one night stand, and like I just never have. Like I've always dated people, and like when you're dating people, you're like, it sort of like ramps up over time. Like at least that's what happened to me before I got married and all that. But I'm wondering if like that's just kind of like you go back to like the high school years again, like, oh, we got to first base or second base or whatever it was. I don't know.
Slowing things down.
Yeah,
I
slowing
think it's
things
a great
down.
idea. We tend to forget that when we get into a relationship and it becomes sexual. It's like a lot of that stuff does go by the wayside. All the sexy text messages kind of evaporate. When we do have sex, there's less foreplay, there's less teasing. It's like, let's go straight for the thing, straight for penetration. And I think it has a lot to do. The slowing it down is huge. And we can really start to notice and listen. And, there's a lot more opportunities inside that for new types of experiences to happen. And it's hard to do because once you cross that line, it's like, okay, now we're doing the thing. Instead of, can we slow down? Can we feel? Can we not have any agenda? Can we get rid of this goal that anything in particular has, that we have to get anywhere in sex? And I think that's another big challenge that I see a lot of couples face, is this idea that we have to get to climax, get to orgasm, that's the point of sex. But when we do that, in a lot of ways, we create more tension, which always leads to less enjoyment and lowers our orgasmic potential. And we also cut ourselves off from a whole host of other types of experiences that we can have, and different types of orgasm even that are available, orgasmic types of experiences that are different than just your sort of standard climax that we call orgasm. There's so many other things that we can experience sexually, but it's not possible if we're just sort of beelining for the orgasm and we're forgetting all the other parts of our body that can be erogenous and pleasurable. So I like that, like dating again. Yeah,
like dating again.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
I love that. I want to switch gears for a second. Just really kind of ask a question for all the guys out there.
Sure.
So do you know who Jim Gaffigan is, the comedian?
No.
Oh, he's so funny. He's a clean comedian. He's kind of like overweight, and he always talks about his weight and his 5 kids and how he's lazy. He's hilarious. But there was a commercial that he was in, and it's like these 4 beautiful women, and they're like walking out on the streets of, like, I think it's like New York, and they're like all together. It looked like something out of Sex and the City, but not the Sex and the City girls. And they're all like talking, having a good time. You can't hear anything. It's all audible. And then all of a sudden, like, all of them are just like they see this, you tell it's like a dude, right? And you're like, and they're just like, oh my God. Like, or there's like, you can tell like they're just so turned on. So like everybody's of course waiting for some great looking dude, like, and it's Jim Gaffigan with his 5 kids being a dad. And they're just like, oh, so hot. Yeah. And of course it's meant to be funny, but I am curious. Like, I think a lot of guys out there, like, obviously there's a lot of men out there that are very physically triggered, by sex, right? Because we're visual.
Sure. Yeah.
But I also think, we're also, there's a lot of other things that turn on guys besides physical things.
Yeah.
In fact, I think the older we get, like, it's important, but not nearly as important as other things.
Sure.
But I think a lot of guys are like, okay, if I look good, right? Like if I'm visually attractive, if I have some abs, maybe some arms, like that does it for her, right?
Right.
But like, I think that's us being like, no, that does it for us. Not the abs and the arms, but like for, right. So I'm just curious, like, what are the things that, like, if we want to be like, if like, I'm sitting here thinking like a dude who sees like a beautiful woman walk by, and like, it's funny. I also see all these memes too, just to kind of digress a little bit. Like my wife walked past my office in her pajama bottoms, like just regular, like loose fitting pajama pants. They're not sexy. and a tank top. And I was like, oh God, look at that. Like, like, I don't care what she's wearing. I just like, what?
Get her a Snuggie. Those things are really hot. What I dressed up in recently for my partner, it's a little foreplay Snuggie.
No, you didn't. Did you really? Oh my God. You're like the Jedi Master of blankets. Like that thing, that's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
But like, what is it for women? Like, what do we, I know there's safety and there's trust and there's connection, all that, but like, how do we pull those levers most effectively? And I know that's a big question.
Yeah. The thing that leads to the safety and the trust, honestly, there's a couple things I think that men can do. What it really comes down to is integrity. A man of integrity is a man who keeps his word. He does what he says he's going to do. You don't have to ask him 5 times or 10 times. He says he's going to do it and he does it. And I think integrity also in terms of really knowing where you're headed and what your purpose is and what's your direction. Even, whatever that is. If your purpose is to be an amazing dad and that is truly your life's purpose, and do that and do it really well, full in, be fully committed. The other piece is presence. Like, women can feel when you are not all there. Right now, Larry, I see you're looking off to the side. I feel.
Sorry, I was getting a message from my wife as you and I are talking, so that's why. But you're right.
Yeah. Undivided presence. We have like a 6th sense for this. Women might not even know that they have it, but we feel the minute that your attention goes somewhere else, even if you're looking right at me, but your mind is off on the thing you got to do next after we get off this call. Like, I am going to notice that. I feel it on an unconscious level. And that's part of our evolutionary biology, how women are wired as the gatherers of the hunter and gatherer, the tribal aspect, the ability for us to sense and feel in our environment. It was a survival mechanism that we've developed over thousands of years. So when you're not fully there with us, we feel that. And that leads to a lack of feeling like I can trust that presence. A man's presence that I can trust is a man who's fully there with me, complete, undivided. I mean, now, this is not an easy thing. This is obviously like an ongoing practice for men, right? But not being on the phone, not being off in your mind somewhere else, being fully with me, seeing me. Can you see me? Can you really see into my heart, my soul, and my essence right now as you're sitting in front of me? I want to be seen. I want to know that you can also have sensitivity to feel me and sense what I maybe might need in the moment, even though it's good for me to get good at asking for that. Sometimes I suck at that. But it's really awesome when a man is super present, super there, totally tuned in. And I know that I can lean into that presence. There's a part of my nervous system then that I can relax. And when I relax, my sexual energy can also open. If I feel like my partner isn't fully there or he's distracted, that doesn't feel safe for me. There's nothing for me to lean into or expand into. So those are the things that are super important that can really move the needle for a lot of guys if they really take that on and learn how to do it.
Wow. I've never heard it like that, but that makes a lot. So like, especially the part where that presence, you can lean into that presence. Like it's trust, it's dependability. Like I'm a guy, but like, even as a man, like my dad, bless his heart, he's a good man, but like he also has a tendency to make you feel like you're the most unimportant person in the room because he's very distracted. And he'll look around, he'll look at his phone, and I'm just, and even as a guy, I'm just like, why do I even talk to you? Like, I don't really, I mean, like the guy's 75 years old. He's doing the best he can. He's a great guy. He's 75, but he looks like he's 50, but still, but like it's one of those things. It's in the back of my mind when we're talking. I'm just like, I just get annoyed and it's distracting and I don't like it. I feel like it's disrespectful. It's just as my wife texted me, I looked over here and took my eyes off you. I mean, I understand what that feels like. And I think, for a man, like, and this is, I'm not defending men because we need to be better about this, but I think inside a man's head, he is literally trying to balance and do and accomplish and do 10,000 things.
Yes.
And we think that if we take our mind and our eyes off those things, like we're actually doing the relationship and the whole family a huge disservice by not being like, okay, I need to do that. Okay, I need to do this. I need to do this. Because so like, but I think what you're talking about, it's the tip of the spear, I think, for romance and intimacy and trust and conversations. But what advice do you have for men that when they start to get distracted or they catch themselves doing that, what do you tell men to bring them back to the moment?
So first of all, men are awesome. And you're right. You guys have a lot on your shoulders and you get a lot of stuff done, which is awesome. But in the bedroom, if you want her energy, which is what most men actually want
from a woman,
we want. Am I right? Yeah.
Oh my God. That's what we want.
You want her beauty. You want her radiance. And she's possibly quite terrified of that within herself. That's another conversation. But to make it safe for that to come out in her, you want to bring more presence, more consciousness. You want to be, and stillness is the thing, again, that helps to create that safety. So she doesn't feel like she has to hold it, because if she feels like she's got to hold it together, like, hey, you're not really here in this moment, and I don't really feel safe. Like, I have to hold myself. Like, if that's the case, and I've got to hold myself, which is not going to release my energy. It's not going to release my radiance. It's not going to get my sexual arousal to come online. So at least in the bedroom, when you're with your partner, if that's what you want, if you want to start to create sexual charge with your partner, then to start to notice her body. That's a great spot to start. What do you see when you look at her? What am I aware of right now as I'm here with my partner? I could see your beautiful breasts. Wow, I can see that you've had a long day. I can see that maybe you're a little tired right now. I can see that perhaps you'd like me just to hold you. Like, you just start to notice. So you're using your consciousness, but you're just bringing it right there into the moment to see what's actually there in that moment, so that you're not scattered. You're not trying to be there with her, but also like, I've got these 10 million other things to do. When you're in the bedroom with your wife, or you're wanting to lead up to that, if you can bring that piece, that's going to help immensely. The other thing I want to say, and I see this happen with a lot of men because they get rejected a lot and they've been shamed, sex shamed. When it happens for women too, but men feel like it's only safe for me to bring my heart energy, because she doesn't want to have sex with me, or my sexual energy maybe is too threatening. Gosh, and we have so much in our world now around that has not helped men. But I would offer to men, like, don't shut down your sex energy. Bring heart into it. Of course, learn to connect your sex with your heart, both of those things, cock and heart. We want both of them because we don't want to just have sex with a friend. There's no charge there. She actually wants we want the dangerous guy in a safe way, right? We want that. So bring that. Don't cut off the cock energy just because it's scary or you're afraid of it or you're afraid she. Can you breathe into that part of your body? Because that's how she's going to feel more of you as well. It doesn't mean you have to go act on that or use that or force her to have, not that we'd ever want to do that, but feel it in your body. Take some awareness into your genitals and let that part also be connected to your heart. That brings more of your presence there, and she can respond to that. She'll feel more of you. And that can also potentially activate her to start to relax and actually, believe it or not, trust you more because you're more embodied, you're more present. There's not a party that's cut off from that aspect of your presence.
I mean, to me, isn't that what passion really probably is?
Passion
or is that
comes
different?
from a Latin word that means to suffer.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, it does.
I had no idea.
To suffer.
Maybe we should pick a different word.
Yeah, I like the word polarity, magnetic attraction.
I like that.
I think polarity is really fun because polarity really is, that's kind of what people are wanting when they say they want passion. But to get that, being conscious about it is really what can bring that online. And so what a man can do is he can bring that by breathing more deeply into his body, feeling his genitals, and sort of leaning back into that. There's a lot of I got to go get it because I just, and believe me, I get that. Like, you just want to get the thing because you have this desire. But if you can lean back and breathe that, there is something so hot about a guy when he is just fully connected to his sexual energy and just leaning back. And he's not out there trying to get it or make something happen, but he's just all there. All of him is there. That's magnetic. That's what draws the feminine. And that's what helps to release feminine energy.
I love you. You just gave me the best advice ever.
I'm so glad.
Oh my God. I can't wait to use this.
Yeah.
I can't wait to do this.
Let me know how it goes. Yeah.
I will. Well, the funny thing is that as you're talking about all those things, I sit here and I'm thinking about, we have 4 boys, from 18 to 8. So like our sex life is like, hey, my wife will be like, meet me in the closet in 5 minutes.
It's hot. I love it.
Yeah. And it's 5 minutes in the closet.
Right.
And literally we have so many quickies. But so
Awesome.
and we've had this conversation lately, where I've brought this up and I'm like, hey, I would really like to have, more passionate sex with you. She's like, I thought we were. I was like, we are at a handful of minutes at a time. I was like, I miss those times where we just kind of get lost in each other for an hour, and time goes away, everything goes away. I was like, I missed that,
Yeah.
And she's like, I do too. But it's difficult. When we got kids in and out constantly. But the funny thing is that even before kids, or when we were in college, you describing it in that way almost made me remember how we used to.
Right.
And it's still there. We just haven't pressed that button in a long time. And I'm like, man, there's that's remarkable. Can I ask one more question about that?
Sure, please.
I feel like that right there, if most men knew that, and just practice that on a consistent basis, which, by the way, disclaimer, if we do this out of the blue now, your wife's gonna be like, who are you? What are you doing? Right? And so I really want to ask about that, because guys are going to be like, I knew it wouldn't work. And we're like, no, wait, back up. You're really triggering her uncertainty button right now. She doesn't know what's going on. You haven't done this for a long time, but
the pattern interrupt.
Right. The pattern. So my question is if men step into this, right. And their partner is probably going to be like, what are you doing? Who are you? How do we say, hey, just go along with it? I don't know. What do you say to them?
I guess my comeback would be, what are you feeling right now?
Oh.
What are you feeling? We'll tell you more about that.
Okay.
Because then you take her into her feeling sense, which is where you want her. She might not know that. But that's, that's the other piece. The feminine aspect of this is to be in your feeling sense, to notice your body, and to quit giving direction. Quit telling your guy, do this and do that and get that done, and stop all that. And instead just tell him how you feel. Tell him how you feel. Let him find the solution, because that again, that creates the polarity. So, but for the guys who want to try this, that's what I would do. I would just say, ask her how she's feeling. When she what are you going on? Well, tell me, what are you feeling right now? I can see that something's different. I can see your body moving. I see this look on your face. What are you feeling? Like, just take her into that.
So what if she comes back with and says, I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm kind of confused of what you're doing right now. Or I'm just like, this feels good to me, but like, what's happening? Like, almost like confused in a way. You know what I mean?
That's where you just, kiss her passionately and don't go up into the mind.
I have 2 more podcasts after this, and I'm thinking I'm going to cancel them.
I think the other thing too is that, again, we can't make it into a technique with an agenda attached. If she feels the agenda,
Exactly.
she is going to shut down and run the other way. So you do this because you want to experiment, because you want to have fun, because you want to play around, see how it impacts her, and because it makes you a better man and it makes you more present and it makes you much more sexually attractive. That's why you do it, not to try to get something or create an outcome.
I completely agree with that. And I'm a huge fan. Every guy I coach, I'm like, the things you're doing, you do them without agenda.
Yeah.
Because they sniff that a mile away, and it's repulsive,
if
right?
not 10 miles.
Right. It's like, this has to be part of how you operate. This has to be part of your being, right? Versus something that you just go do. So I would love for you to talk about that before we wrap up here. Yeah. Sorry, I can't get enough of you. It's really good. But like, how do we instruct men to be like, don't do it, be it?
Yeah, don't do it, be it. How do we tell men to not do it, be it?
Right.
That's a level. It's about mastering sensitivity, which is also a skill that makes you more trustable and more sexually attractive. Sensitivity is a matter of being and feeling. So we need it. Women need it, men need it, but it tends to be a little bit more of a difficult skill for men to learn. And so that's about feeling. And how do you do that? Well, you can work with Larry, you can work with me, you can find other professionals out there that help you learn how to be a rock star in the bedroom and out. But yeah, sensitivity, I think, is being aware of your own emotions, not as the only thing, but you've got a lot of mind energy. Most men are more of the mind. To start to acknowledge your feelings and have space for that. And you can do that also by acknowledging your partner's feelings, or if you have children, acknowledging their feelings, seeing their feelings. That will help to expand it. When we see something, we put attention on something, that magnifies it. And so in partnership, in sacred partnership, one of the ways you can do that is like with your female partner. Start to see her more, start to notice when she's having feelings. And just with that capacity of seeing, and then also learning how to ideally feel your own self a little bit more. That's kind of how we do that.
I love that. That's so cool. Well, for the guys, for the 300 guys who want to come work with you right now,
come on, guys.
Maybe 3,000. I don't know. But how can the guys best connect with you, follow you, or just maybe engage in some of the resources you have out there?
Thank you so very much. Yes, I do have a free resource, a guide on the pleasure keys, which is some of what we talked about. And it does help with how do you get more present during sex and how to deepen that connection. That's the pleasure keys. And that's a downloadable PDF at pleasurekeys.com. So if they just go there and download that, that's a great way to stay in touch with me. And then my main website is pathwaytopleasure.com. And I have my couples immersions and retreats. That's the main way that I work with couples, is through immersive experience. So I love that. I find it's the most effective way to really help couples build a good foundation on the stuff we talked about here and really get the most traction so they can really implement and start having real results in their life, to have deeper connection, getting back on that same page in sex and intimacy, which is my specialty. So that's at pathwaytopleasure.com, and those retreats, I run them throughout the year. I also do private coaching. But I would say the best thing is go grab Pleasure Keys PDF guide at pleasurekeys.com. And then I'm on the social media as well under my name, Susan Morgan Taylor, on Instagram and Facebook.
And just so we know, what does your 2025 retreat calendar look like?
Yes, the next one is coming up in April. So actually it's March 31st through April 4th. that's our next one. Then we'll be doing some dates to be announced for June and in the fall, September and October. Our next one right now that we're currently rolling is the April retreat in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, which is at the foot of the Smoky Mountains. It's such a beautiful place to be, to really just get away, get out there in nature, and really immerse in your relationship for 3 days and 4 nights. It's lovely. It's going to be beautiful. I can't wait. I love it. I love helping couples in this fashion. It's just so exciting to see people get the results and make those lasting changes, and really having that foundation for long-term change. That's really what I'm about. I really want my couples to be equipped to be able to do this without needing me over the long term. So I'm all about equipping people for long-term success. And and the world's a better place when we're having sex and connecting. And so that's what I'm all about.
Awesome. Well, guys, not to worry. We are going to have all the links in the show notes for you. Especially if you guys want to go check out that retreat, that's pretty darn amazing. And I guess, is there actually a landing page, Susan, where all the retreat dates are going to be?
Yeah. So right now, the best spot is to go to pathwaytopleasure.com. Up there at the top, you can navigate over to the retreats. That is the best spot to get all the information on the retreats. And eventually I'll probably have an easier domain for just the retreat. But right now, all my stuff lives on pathwaytopleasure.com. And then just up at the top, it'll say couples retreat or immersion. And you can click on that and it has all the details there.